Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Maven House podcast. I am so excited to begin our season 3 with a very special guest, which I say that about all of my guests, but this time it's true. No, I'm just kidding. I'm so excited to have you here. This is Karen Espinosa from Maverick City Musica.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Thank you for being on.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on. I think I speak for so many of the people listening as well as myself that we admire you so much. And it's like we know you because once you've been with someone in your room worshiping, you don't know us, but we know you.
Yeah. Also,
right?
If you're in the same nationality, like Dominican.
Absolutely.
Okay, we're family.
Absolutely.
So automatically, that's it. So worship, family, that's it. We're sisters.
And I relate. I love that Maverick City Musica will do the throwbacks.
We love the throwbacks.
Yes, and I'm like, okay, and I feel like that's so us, right? Because we're from a generation, we're probably close in age. I'm not going to ask you your age on the podcast, but we're probably around close in age. But like both of us, we have these Dominican backgrounds, but growing up in the United States. So you've got the Coritos inside of you, but then you've got Maverick City inside of you too. And it's like, how does that, I didn't plan to ask you this, but going into like, do you ever feel like your identity is like torn 3 ways? It's like Dominican, Christian, American, like.
No, honestly, like I love it. I love being a part of everything. And I love that the Lord made me that way, where I can, and we've talked about this, I've talked about it with a couple of my friends before, that, you know, with Coritos, we've sung in our album, Coritos, old hymns, right? That I remember since I was a child singing, and then new songs. But it's great to sing those old Coritos because it brings us back. Like, when I sing these Coritos, it brings me back to the place where it all started, where my relationship started with the Lord, and then also be able to sing something new to the Lord and bring something fresh to Him, still honoring the old, but then also bringing something to His throne room that's fresh and new, is something that I love. And so then also being part of different cultures and being American and Dominican from Dominican parents and doing all these different things, I think it's made me who I am today, and I love it and I honor it, and I really just enjoy it. I do it the best that I can myself.
Absolutely. And it makes you so original. Like, like it gives you such a blended and rich identity. Do you ever feel like when you're, because I know that sometimes you'll be with the Maverick City crowd, and then sometimes you'll be like how you are now in a Hispanic church with Hispanic people. I know for me, it makes me feel like I bring something different to the table, whichever one I'm in. You know, it's like I'm representing the Latinos when I'm with people who are not Latino, but I'm representing, you know, the Americans when I'm with all Latinos. And I'm like, no, but, you know, in the United States, we're cool too.
Yeah. I mean, which is so cool because, you know, besides Maverick City Musica, which is Latin based, right? I'm part of another group called Family Music, and it's all in English. And it's a bunch of different people, America, every nationality, but we all do it in English. So I just feel like, okay, I bring something to this, right? To the English community, but I also bring something to the Hispanic community. Not always did I think that I was able to do that for the Hispanic community because I didn't think about, there's so many different reasons why, but the Lord showed me that I can. I do have something to bring, and He's given me a gift, and He's given, you know, another person a specific gift. And even we've talked about it with the Maverick City Musica group, that everybody has a specific gift that the Lord has given to them. And it's so precious that we are able to bring it together for an album or for a night of worship and all show a little bit of what the Lord has given to us and bring it in unity for Him, to glorify Him. So, yeah, I mean, I love it.
Absolutely. And I asked you that because I love getting to share with people that God calls you because of who you are.
Yes.
Not in spite of who you are. Like I always say, your calling has context. You know, when God was figuring out, or not figuring out, but when God was making His purpose for me, He knew I'd be Dominican. He knew I'd be a millennial. He knew who my parents were going to be and what my talents were going to be, and He called me with all of that in mind.
And I've asked that before to the Lord. I'm like, so why did you make me Dominican? Why didn't you make me, I don't know, Chinese? I don't know. But I've always asked those questions. Why did you make me this way? Why didn't you make me taller? Before I used to ask, why didn't you make me taller, Lord? Like everybody always, why is my name Karen? Like there's so many things that I've asked the Lord, why? But I think that I've found beauty in, you know, knowing that he designed me, he created me, and he said, this is good. And I feel honored to, you know, be created by someone that thinks so highly of me, if that makes sense.
And do you think there ever was a time, like, where younger Karen saw all these things about herself and didn't like them?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Like, did you ever think that you'd be doing what you're doing today?
No, 100%.
Tell us a little bit about where you started and where you come from.
No, but for real, you know, I never thought I'd be doing something like this. And it's crazy to think about it. I mean, my mom did. Moms always know. Dominican moms. And I think with my mom, I really am thankful for her because she played a really important role with who I am today. You know, growing up, I didn't, you know, my mom accepted Christ when, you know, I was young. And so I grew up in that environment. First they were Catholic, and then she had an encounter with Jesus, and then her life was never the same. In my family, they weren't Christian yet, and I have older brothers and all that stuff. And my mom said, no, you're not gonna accept Jesus. You're gonna love Jesus. She would pour at 3 a.m. oil on them and pray over them and say, he's gonna serve Christ. She's gonna serve Christ. So she was always that prayer warrior. And growing up, I didn't see the importance of it. I didn't think it was. I didn't understand why she would worship God or anything like that. And I remember she would always speak life into me. And I remember one day I had an encounter with Jesus. And I was young. You know, some people have encounters with Jesus when they're 20, or some people have encounters at the womb. You know, I had an encounter with Jesus around 13, 14 years old where I said, you know what, Lord, I really, really want to give my life to you. And I was able to do that. And so I think that growing up, you know, I loved the Lord, but I didn't think I'd be a worship leader. I didn't think I was capable of being a worship leader. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to do nursing. I wanted to be in the medical field. Just put me in the medical field. Wow. And growing up, my parents would, you know, when your parents always ask you, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do? I said, I want to be, I want to be a nurse. I want to be a doctor. And my mom would say, you don't want to be a worship leader? Because my mom's a worship leader, you know. She traveled the world, and she does ministry. And she's like, you don't want to be a worship leader like me and travel? And I said, no, that's something I will never, ever do. And I told her multiple times.
And why was that? Why were you like, no?
Yeah, I mean, I think about it today, I just feel like I wasn't capable. You know, I didn't qualify to do it. I thought I wasn't good enough to do it. There's so many other better, you know, artists out there, singers, and I didn't think that it's something that I wanted for my life, or I didn't think that it's something that the Lord had for me. I thought it was just for my mom. Or for somebody else, my brother, or something like that. And so I went to school. You know, I studied psychology. I studied nursing, and then I went over and switched to psychology. I had this whole plan. And sometimes we do that. We plan so much for our lives. This is what I want to do. I have this 5-year, 6-year plan. And then the Lord goes and says, I have something better for you. And I think that when I realized what the Lord had for me, and that was itself another encounter that I'd love to share, but that's when the Lord one day met me and said, no, this is what you're meant to do. And when I opened my eyes, I was like, wow. And so coming to this and being who I am today, it's shocking. It's happening so fast, but it's something that the Lord had for me, and I didn't know. His plans are way better than my plans. And so, and the main reason for it, and it's something that we all struggle when we're young too, it's just not feeling that you're qualified. I didn't feel that I felt like I was qualified. Not only that, but then also trying to do it in Spanish. Yeah. That's something that was bigger too, because English community, fine. But then now the Lord was putting me in the Spanish community, something that I didn't feel comfortable, something that I felt like, oh man, my Spanish is not great. Like, why are you calling me to do something that I feel like I'm not qualified, Lord? Like, why? But sometimes when there's a lack of something in a community, the Lord will qualify those that feel that they're not qualified for it.
Absolutely.
And so, like, he did that with me. And I feel like there's so many young girls, so many young women that feel like, oh, I'm not qualified to be a leader, or I'm not qualified to do this. But, like, when you rest on the Lord and you trust in the Lord and you really let him plan your life, like, things will become so much better. And, like, you'll see it. you'll see it like I saw. I thought I was never going to do it, and here I am today. Yeah. So it's crazy.
And it's exactly what you said. It's because I think sometimes we're not qualified. Because I identify with you 100%. Yeah. Like, first, I didn't think I could preach, and I was like, if I do preach, it's for sure not going to be in Spanish. Like, that's, I think not a lot of people realize that just because you do ministry in Spanish doesn't mean that that's the language you speak at home. Yeah. I have people on my Instagram, we were talking off camera, I have people on my Instagram, they're like, ¿por qué estás hablando inglés? And I'm like, that's like the language I actually speak. Yeah. Like, you don't know how hard I work. Yeah, you don't know how hard I work to make it seem like I always speak Spanish. But it's true. It makes you rest on the Lord and understand that it's not you doing it. Yeah. It's completely Him taking you to that level. And I wanted to ask you, because I feel like there's a lot of people who listen here and they might be like, I might be a worship leader, but I'm not sure, or I might be a worshiper. And I love what you said, and this has happened to me before, there's so many maybe better singers or better, I'm not saying that about you, but I think that about myself, like there are better singers and there are better maybe speakers, but the Lord chose me, and I think that's because there's a difference between singing and worshiping. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Like, what's the difference between singing and what you do when you're leading worship?
That's so good. When we talk about singing and worshiping, a lot of people sometimes think it's like the same thing, but there's such a big difference, at least for me, because when if I'm singing, I'm going up there, and when you see somebody like perform, right? You go up there and you see somebody perform, go to a concert or something like that, they're singing, and everybody is looking at that person sing. And so they are getting that glory because everybody's looking at them sing. They're singing, they're performing. When I am leading worship, when we're worshiping, it's not about the person leading. It's not about the artist. It's about the Lord. It's about Him. And so when I'm up there, I always try to make an emphasis, like, the reality of it is the whole world, the earth, the heavens, everything, all the elders, all the saints, all the angels, they're crying out, holy, holy, holy is the Lamb 24/7. Yeah. And we get that privilege, we get the honor of joining into that song, that 24/7 the elders and the saints are singing unto the Lord. And I think that, like, when we are coming in together as a group in a community to worship, it's not about just singing songs. It's about really exalting the one who the songs are about. Sometimes we get tired of, like, have you ever like sung songs over and over and over again, the same song? Estoy cansada de esta canción. I'm tired of the same old song. We sing it constantly, but I always ask the Lord, like, can you reveal something new about this song? Like, what is something new you have to say that maybe I didn't capture it before? Because there's so much to the Lord. There's so much to Him, right? And sometimes we get so used to singing the same song that we miss that maybe He wants to talk to us and reveal something new about that song. Yes. To worship you I live. How many times have we sing, to worship you I live, to worship you I live? Like, maybe there's something like deeper in that. Like, ask the Lord, and I've asked the Lord for stuff like that, like, reveal to me what's, and so, like, with singing and worship, like, it's not just songs that we're singing. Like, we're not here just to sing a song and look pretty and do the notes and run with your voice and all that stuff. Like, He is the center, and, like, everybody, I always, sometimes I'm like, everybody, hey, look at me, like, it's Him, not me. Like, I'm just, like, singing. I'm doing what I've been doing for years and years and years. Like, I'm doing something that I know that I've been created to do. Join me in that. Join me, and let's sing together to the Lord, and let's worship Him. And so I think singing is more about, like, you getting that glory, but when you're really worshiping, it's about Him getting the glory. And that's why I always put an emphasis of, hey, let's not sing. Like, let's actually, like, worship Him and exalt Him, because this is what we're going to be doing for the rest of our lives. I mean, we're just practicing right now here on earth, but when we're in heaven, this is what we're going to do for the rest of our lives, sing the same song to Him, just like they're doing right now in heaven. And I think that that's the beauty of it, to do that. And so, any worship leader that comes to me and says, like, hey, like, how can I be this, like, worship leader? Like, how can I, not just sing or just like, I want to be a worship leader. What can I do? I always get questions asked to me all the time. Mm-hmm. What can I do with songwriting? What can I do to be a worship leader? I'm scared. Like, trust in him and put your faith in him and lean on him, and not only come to sing, but like actually have a relationship with the Father outside of like when you're singing on the altar. Yep. Let your posture, let your heart always be connected to the Lord. Sometimes we only have relationships with God when we're singing. Mm-hmm. And that's when it becomes singing and not just like really worshiping unto the Lord. Because when I am a singer, when I'm actually a worshiper, I'm a worshiper on the altar, off the altar. Yeah. I'm a worshiper wherever I go. And I have communion with the Lord in the secret place. And it's funny because whatever you do in the secret place, when you have a relationship with the Lord in the secret place, that's going to show when you're on the altar. Yep. Like, have you ever been to a place, I don't know if you have, but like where, you go and see this worshiper and they're singing, you're like, oh, they sing nice. Mm-hmm. But then you see somebody come in, someone else sing and lead worship, and you're like, whoa. They carry something. They carry oil. They carry something fresh.
The atmosphere just changed.
Yes. And that's the difference. Like, we don't want to be just good singers. Like, we want to have relationship with the Lord. We want to carry something. And I always tell the Lord that. I'm like, I don't want to be just a good singer. I want to be someone that when someone sees me, they're like, she carries Jesus. She carries oil. She has spent time with the Lord. Mm-hmm. And I think that the first thing to be a worship leader, you have to spend time with the Lord, because that's the most important thing.
And what are some tips that you can give? I love that you spoke about the secret place. Yeah. What are some tips you can give to the young worship leader or just the young Christian who says, like, I want to have a secret place, but maybe right now I don't have it. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to start it. Yeah. I'm like you, that my mom was a Christian, and, she would pray for me and she would lay hands on me, but then I had to make the decision to be like, okay, I'm actually going to go into a room and pray, or I'm actually going to read the word for myself. Like, what are some things, and when did it start for you when you started actually having a secret place?
Yeah, I think that it's, sometimes people think like, oh, it's when I want to do it that I'll do it. It's that I don't have sometimes you're really not going to want to, like, do it, but you have to, because it's your flesh. But if you do it, if you push yourself and you say, I remember for me, I'm like, okay, like, I was lazy to read the word. Sometimes that's how we start. Mm-hmm. We're lazy to read the Bible. And I remember I told myself, I'm like, no, I'm going to sit and I'm going to dedicate this time to read. Or I'm going to sit and dedicate this time. I'm going to play a song. I'm going to play a worship song, and I'm just going to sit there for a second, and I'm just going to talk to you like normal. It doesn't have, sometimes people think that when we are having a relationship with the Lord, it has to be like this reverence of hey Lord, almighty, omnipotent one of the heavens of the heavens. No, like, it doesn't really have to be complicated. The Lord doesn't expect you to be perfect with your words. He just wants your heart. He just wants you the way you are. And so coming and talking to the Lord, sometimes I talk to the Lord like I talk to a friend, like, hey man, like, life is rough. It's hard out here. Like, it's real hard right now. And like, I talk to him like, because he's my best friend, he's my everything, and wherever I go, I want to make sure that I am with him and that he's with me. And so, starting out with just going to a place by yourself and just pressing on a worship song and just really meditating on what the words mean, or how is that affecting your life, or reading the word and starting out with something, or seeking. I always feel like community is so important and accountability is important. I think that maybe you don't have a mom that serves the Lord and is a prayer warrior, but I bet you there's somebody that is willing to invest and help you, and you're willing to ask questions, and then they're willing to help you with that and guide you. A mentor, a friend, a brother or sister, somebody. No one's ever going to be ever just alone. That your mind will think that, you will think that, but the Lord will always put people in your life, always. And I believe that strongly. And I think that for me, I learned so much. I had that encounter with Jesus, and in every season, it always changes. The older I get, the more I get to know about him, and the more I want to know about him. There's still so much of the Lord I don't know yet, and I'm always saying, like, okay, what do you have for me today? What's something new that you have to show me today? I want to know more, And so I think for me personally, I had an encounter with Jesus like never before at the end of 2019. And remember how we were talking before about, when did you realize that, you know, you're going to be this worship leader and do all these things? Like, and I told you I didn't even realize, like, I didn't even think it would happen and didn't have that plan for my life. And I remember that, you know, the date, the time when my relationship with the Lord really, like, was shooketh, as they use the word. And I remember I was at a conference in Orlando, Jesus Image, and I had an encounter. I remember I was so frustrated with life, because it's normal. It's normal to be frustrated spiritually with your life. Like, it's normal as a young person to be like, oh man, like, you know, I'm constantly serving, or, you know, maybe you are constantly serving and you feel like, man, I'm just frustrated with life right now. Like, I feel stuck, you know, and sometimes even at our 20s, sometimes we come to a realization that we feel stuck. Like, what's going on, God? Like, are you not seeing me? Are you not, you know, you've promised me this, but what's going on? I'm not seeing. And I remember that I was frustrated with my life. And I remember there was somebody speaking and they said, you know, everybody close your eyes. And I'm like, quickly close my eyes. You follow the directions. Close my eyes. And I remember they're like, some of you guys need to tell the Lord that you love him. And I'm like, the first thing I said was
Lord
like,
knows that.
Lord, you know I love you. Like, you know, come on. I don't have to say it all the time. And I remember they're like, some of you guys really need to say, Lord, I want to fall more in love with you. Jesus, I want to fall more in love with you. And I was like, and they're like, just say it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try. And I closed my eyes and I'm like, you know this already, but I was like, Jesus, I want to fall more in love with you. And all of a sudden, I felt like literally like tears running down my face. And I went to the floor, cried my eyes out. Like, I had such a pure encounter with the Lord. And then I felt like he spoke to me. And at that moment, it was a really big stage, really lots of people, thousands of people. And then the worship goes up. The worship band, and I remember the Lord was talking to me at that moment and said, do you believe that, you know, he's like, I've called you for something special. Open your eyes, right? My eyes were still closed. I opened my eyes and I could see myself on that stage. Wow. And hence, at that moment, I had I was serving at my local church. I have a small church community, love it, you know, people that believe in me. And I didn't think much. I was like, what? And so I look at myself on the stage, like the Lord's showing me, and I'm like, you're crazy. You know, that's the first thing.
Let's go back to the I love you.
Yeah. And I remember I was like, that's crazy, like that. What? And I'm like, he's like, do you say yes to me, Karen? Do you say yes? And I said, like, and I, you know, it's normal for us to, like, doubt for a quick second. You know, and there's people in the Bible that even doubted. And I was like, but Lord, we always use that but, right? And so I'm like, but Lord, like, I don't know anybody that's up there in the Christian realm, in the Christian world, any artist, any big speaker. I don't know anybody. Nobody knows who I am. Like, it's going to be so impossible for me to go be up in a stage filled with thousands of people. Like, that's never going to happen. And he's like, do you say yes to me? And I said, oh my God. I remember at that moment I was like, yes. And I said yes. And my eyes, like tears running down my eyes. I was like, yes, yes, yes. I'll do whatever you want. And I think that at that moment, when I truly said yes to the Lord, changed who I am as a worship leader, because I was doing it for years, changed who I was as a worship leader, as a person, as really depending on him and not letting my own fears, anxiety, and all that stuff of what if this, what if that, I don't know this, I don't know that, get in the way, but really put my faith and trust in him. And I remember I got up and I told Danny, my husband, I was like, I told him, I'm like, you know, honestly, like, the Lord spoke to me, Danny. I said, and this is going to sound scary, but he told me that next year, like this upcoming year, this is the end of 2019, I said this upcoming year something's going to happen, and like he's really going to launch me into worship ministry, and he's really going to connect me with people that I never thought I would connect with, and I just feel it. And I'm like, it's going to happen soon, Danny. And he believes, and my husband believes in me. He's like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And literally 2 months later, that's when things started happening, and I started connecting with people from Mav and different Christian artists and all that stuff, and started writing with people literally in 2 months. And I think that's because I put my trust in the Lord, and he was faithful with it. And so for anyone listening and feels like, oh, like, you know, is this a possibility? Is this going to ever happen? Like, am I called for this? Like I said again, like, trust in the Lord, and you will see what he has for you. And whatever he has for you, like I said, like, it's so special, it's so unique, and it's just designed for you. So
I love that. One thing I love about your story is that God didn't ask you, you know, he didn't ask you to come up with how.
Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes what we're thinking. We're like, okay, God, but then so who do I have to call? What do I have to do? And that's not what he was asking you. He was just like, do you say yes?
Yeah.
Because if it's really God calling you, all you have to do is say yes, and he takes care of the rest.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure the people that you met and the conversations that you started having in those next months, they weren't orchestrated by you. They were orchestrated by God, because he's the one that called you. And he who calls you equips you and opens doors for you.
Yeah.
So,
and I felt like I was like looking at, you know, when you like look, I felt like I was looking at myself, like I was outside of my body, that, like a third person looking at what the Lord was doing. And even to today, I'm like, wow, like he just keeps doing these things. And I'm like, that's crazy. And I'm like, oh, this is me. It's my life. Like he's doing it to me. Like I can't believe it. And one thing after the other, I think I told the Lord, I'm like, slow down a little bit, because it's so much he's given me. And I'm like, wow. But also it's all the years that I like of intimacy that I spent with the Lord.
Sowed into
the unseen. Yeah. The moments that nobody knew who Karen was. And I was sowing into, you know, my intimacy with the Lord, my relation, constantly pouring down my oil to him when nobody knew who this Karen was. What I'm doing today is what, you know, when it comes to worship and leading worship, is what I've been doing years and years and years. Yeah. Just now it's being exposed, something that I've been doing for years in the secret place with the Lord. And I think that when you prioritize your relationship with the Lord and really have that secret place and really spend time with him, and it doesn't always have to be like we always, you know, find a room in your house, like we always say, like really have that relationship with the Lord and the secret place. But sometimes, you know, what if you're like, I'm always busy, Karen, I'm always this, I'm like this and that. Like when you're driving alone in your car, like talk to him. You know, I always say, and like we always say, Danny and I, my husband and I, we always say, like, why don't you just, you know, he says it, he's like, go to Chick-fil-A one day and buy 2 meals, one for you and one for the Lord. People are going to think that you're crazy, but place it, like really act like he's right there. Place it right there, prepare it, the fries, all that stuff, the chicken, all that stuff, and really talk to the Lord, like as if he's there. Open the door for him as if he's there, because the reality of it, he's there, he's present, and he's listening. And sometimes we feel like he's not, but he is. And I think that when we do that, and we, you know, I challenge you to do that one day and see, maybe people will think you're crazy, but when you really challenge yourself and do something like that, you realize, oh no, he's right here, he's right there, he's been here all along.
And it goes to show that it's so easy for us to do that with a friend. Like if you text me and you say, hey, want to go to Chick-fil-A? I'll be like, oh, I'll be there.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're not too busy for that.
Yeah.
Like, so that's kind of what that says to me too. It's like if your friend texts you and says, let's go to Chick-fil-A, you'll go. So why don't we just imagine that the Lord's texting us every day and just saying, I want to meet up with you at some point.
Yeah,
I want to talk
so
to you.
good.
I want to catch up with you.
Yeah.
And another thing I love from your story and what you said, and that I hope just stays in people's hearts, especially if there's someone out there who wants to be a worship leader, is Karen just spoke to us about years that she did in the secret, what only now is being brought out to the light. And I'm a worship leader here at our local church, and for 10 years, I'm not anymore, but for 10 years I was the worship pastor as well. Yeah. And so I've seen the opposite happen so many times. I've seen people who they're like, so when did you start worshiping the Lord? Oh, I got saved 3 months ago. Yeah. And then they'll be like, so when am I going to be the lead worship leader here? And you're like, whoa, I've been here 10 years. Like, slow down. Not because I care about my place, but it's just like, it's very hard for us sometimes to see that there is a process, and that process is preparing you. Yeah. So much of the difficulties that you'll see in ministry, because people don't see that. There are difficulties and there are challenges in ministry, and there are, you know, and I want to ask you about that in a second, but it's not all roses and it's not all easy, but your time in the secret, you're developing character that is what's going to sustain you when you are in the public eye. Yeah. You know, that's what's going to keep you pure. That's what's going to keep you coming to Jesus. So can you talk to us about what for you has been maybe the most difficult part of ministry? Because I know a lot of people listen to our podcast that are either pastors' kids or youth pastors or leaders, what for you has been the toughest part of leadership? Because you're a leader. You're a leader even to people who you may not see because of social media and things like that. So what's been the toughest part of that? That sometimes makes you maybe be like, I want to go back to the local church and just hide away.
I think it's one of the things is, besides I talked about being qualified, but one of the things is like, when you're for so many years, I was just in my local church serving, and then all of a sudden, so many people know who I am, and you're exposed to so many different, people and people thinking about you. And I think one of the things that I had a challenge with, especially, in the ministry what I'm doing now, is that, like, being exposed and then I care too much. I am a person that care what everybody thinks. So I want everybody to like me. I want everybody, especially ministry, like, I don't want somebody to dislike me or think wrong about me. I want everybody to be my friend. But it's not always going to be like that, unfortunately. And as a leader, you want that so bad. You want to make sure that you leave an impact and everybody loves you and really thinks like, wow. But sometimes people are not going to like you. If it's not because of your hair, it's because how you look, it's because how you act. Maybe you're too friendly, you're too shy, you don't talk too much, you talk too much, you sing loud, you sing too low. Like, there's always going to be an issue. And I think for so long for me, I was like, it was such a challenge for me to accept that as a leader, not everybody, especially now that, so many people are starting to get to know me, that not everybody's going to be okay with maybe how I lead worship, maybe that I like to do this, or I like to flow this way. Not everybody's going to like it. And I think that for so long, I was like, man, like, and when it all started and, you have people in the comment section loving on you, and then you have people in the comment section disliking you and saying, she doesn't sound good, or maybe why is she doing this? And I think that I was like, for a moment, I had to check my heart because it was affecting me. I was like, wait, why is this? First of all, I don't know them, but like, why is it hurting me? Why is this such a thing and tugging in my heart? And I think I really had to ask the Lord for guidance and in ministry, and not only just, maybe you're, a leader at your church, and it's not like you're exposed into different, the world or whatever, but even in your church, where you're like, I want people to like me in my church, I want to be a good leader, and if you get in a conflict with someone, you get in your head, and you're like, overthinking it, but, I had to really surrender that to the Lord and be like, Lord, what do you say of me? What do you think of me? And I understand that maybe people won't like me, but you know what? Some people didn't like Jesus when he was here. Some people did not. Some people loved him, and some people did not like him. And I think that's it's normal. It's going to happen. But I think that when you rest on the Lord and you really trust in the Lord and say, what do you think of me, of what my calling or my voice or whatever that I'm insecure about, right? Because that's something that's challenging. When you're insecure, you feel you're not qualified, you're insecure, and then some people are attacking you. Then you're like, oh my God, are they right? Are they right about me? Should I have not sung? Should I have not been in an album or sing or do this worship ministry? Because they're calling something out that I thought back then that I wasn't qualified for, and they're calling it out. But it's reminding myself, checking my heart, and really saying no, Lord, you are the one who opened this door. No. You called me and you gave this to me, and people are going to think what they're going to think, but you say this, and that's sufficient. That's fine. And I'm going to continue to be the leader that I am, that really shows you. I'm not going to try to be a leader for my own benefit or for my own glory or to be me. No. I want to be a leader that really sets the example of who you are. I want to be like you on earth. That's what I want to do, Jesus. I don't want to be Karen Espinosa and do my own thing. No, Karen Espinosa is not perfect. Have you seen Karen Espinosa get hangry? Not good. Hangry? When I'm hangry, I'm not my husband. No, I'm not good. I'm not happy. I am cranky. All that stuff. No. I want to be like Jesus. How do you lead Jesus? Because that's what I want to do. And in these moments that are so difficult and challenging in ministry, I know that it was difficult and challenging in ministry for you when you were on earth. So what did you do to overcome that, because that's what I want to do, what you do, you know, and that's how I like to think of it, and like move and operate and act, you know, and it's gonna happen, like, especially, you know, pastors' kids, you know, when you're a pastor's kid, you're expected to be a certain way. When you're a minister's kid, I was a minister's kid, so I was expected to be a certain way and do things, and, you know, travel with my mom and do everything, and do that, and preach and dance and everything in ministry. And so I get the pressure. I understand the pressure because I've been there. And I think that people that are watching, like, I've been in your shoes. I understand what it's like, what it feels like to go through these challenging moments. But knowing that you are going through it with Jesus, that's sufficient to me. Yeah. And I think that sometimes we believe and we think, like, okay, well, Karen, like, now you made it. Like, yeah, wow, congrats. Like, you're not going to have challenges anymore. Actually, no. That's when you actually get the most challenges, especially as a worship leader. Like, sometimes people think it's so easy to go see me up there and see me lead worship. Like, when you're a worship leader, it's actually way more challenging. You're constantly attacked as a worship leader.
You're not allowed to get sick.
No.
You can't gallo can't fly.
No.
You have to be on key every time. Yeah.
You have so much pressure. I used to, like, get so in my head because of that. Like, especially the gallo. Now I just embrace it. Like, when a gallo comes out, I laugh. I laugh about it. I'm like, you know what? That gallo was for you, Lord. Do you love it?
I tried.
I tried, but, like, I think, like, it's so important for, like, you to understand that through those challenges, the Lord is still present and will be there with you. So I think that's what I think about it. When I really think about it, I think that's what it narrows down, like, really, really trusting on the Lord through it.
And if we focus on His approval, then whatever additional approval we get, great.
Yeah.
But anything we don't get, that's okay too. Yeah. Because we already have the one that's most important. And it kind of reminds me of, very quickly, a little story. I remember one time I was going up to preach. My dad was out of town and he left me preaching. And I was 6 months pregnant with twins.
Oh, man.
And, like, just that day I just wasn't feeling well. Like, my throat, like, there were just so many things that were, like, off. I didn't get a chance to go do my hair. You know, it's very important as a Dominican woman, because he kind of, like, left out of town, and he told me last minute, like, okay, tú predica mañana. I'm like, my hair.
That happens when you're a pastor's kid.
Yeah, I'm like, no, but I didn't go to the salon. And, like, so many things had me feeling so crappy, really, that I remember I was about to go up on stage, and I'm like, I'm in the bathroom getting ready, and I'm just like, Lord, please help me do good. Because what I was thinking about is, I don't want to be embarrassed if I do bad, you know? And I remember the Holy Spirit, like, I just felt Him talk to my heart, and I felt Him say, you'll do good, but if you don't do good, I still love you. And I started bawling in the bathroom, because it was like one of the first times that it clicked for me that the one who really cares about my quote-unquote performance is me. What God cares about is my heart. And if my heart was already, you know, in the right place, because He knew me. He knew I was willing, even though I was tired, and even though my hair was ugly, and even though, like, you know, that was enough for Him. The performance is extra. Whether or not you do good in front of people, and whether or not people like you, is extra. You already have God's approval, and He already loves you. So thank you so much, Karen, for your story. Thank you for your transparency. Thank you for being here, and thank you for leading us into worship.
Much. No, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor, and we're family, so that's it. Ya tienes una hermana.
Yes. Thank you so much. And you guys who are watching, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to repost, share with someone who you think would enjoy this wonderful interview with my friend Karen Espinosa. We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.